Gus Hansen has one of the most bizarre poker careers of all time. This kid genius went from being on top of the world to losing over $20 million and having to take an ordinary job as an accountant. An overwhelming rise and an unbelievable fall. This is the bizarre story of Gus Hansen, the real legend. Gustav B. Hansen was born in Copenhagen, Denmark on February 13, 1974. He was born an only child and had exceptional potential from a young age. Gus spent most of his elementary education years at home, taught by his mother and aunt. But Gus was more than simply a sharp thinker. He also dominated the national youth tennis rankings. In fact, he was on his way to becoming a professional when a major accident derailed his aspirations. Gus, frustrated and eager to find a new outlet for his competitive nature, began playing backgammon, something his father had taught him. He spent the entire summer honing his talents and learning other techniques. Gus once again demonstrated his inherent talent by defeating every opponent he faced. So he began organizing increasingly large competitions on school grounds, attracting the top players from all across the country. But even they couldn't compete with Gus, who was playing at a world champion level. When Gus wasn't playing backgammon, he was usually studying. His mother instilled in him a hardworking ethic, and he excelled at math. Because backgammon was not a lucrative job, Gus used his mathematical skills to acquire an academic scholarship, believing that a degree in accounting would be ideal for him. Gus, who had defeated every backgammon player in Denmark and was always looking for new challenges, decided to attend the University of California, Santa Cruz. So Gus was now in the United States, loving the warmth and lifestyle of California. He received an invitation to a weekly poker event hosted by a buddy. The game was Texas Hold'em, which Gus had never played before. Perhaps Gus's pals expected this to be an easy win, but he rapidly grasped the game and began experimenting with other techniques. Gus was the last player standing at the end of the night, and he was hooked for good. Gus started playing more frequently at the neighborhood Ocean View card room. Although he definitely possessed a talent for the game, he realized he still had a long way to go. Instead of discouraging him, this fueled his passion. Gus was forced to return to Denmark for military service 2 years into his undergraduate career. Back then, most young men in Denmark were required to complete at least 9 months of basic military training. During his free time, Gus would play poker against the other recruits. He experimented with various techniques and even tried other types of poker, such as Omaha, Raz, and 7-card stud. Hansen maintained refining his talents, and after completing his military training, he boarded the next flight back to the United States. After serving in the Danish military, Gus moved to New York to pursue his goal of gambling. However, the young Dane would have difficulties during his first few years. He mostly played cash games, but made his debut appearance at the World Series of Poker in 1996. Gus was eliminated in the first round of the competition. And while he is sometimes portrayed as an overnight superstar, people generally forget about his struggles in New York. But Gus did not stop. He was determined to improve and devise a radical new strategy. He was going to change things up and try his hand at something so bizarre that it would be impossible to read. He would encounter a number of flops with a range of unusual starting poker cards. This style is not frightened of massive bluffs and focuses on confident, aggressive post-flop play. This marked the birth of the Gus we know and love. "I've raised with cards less attractive than what's in my toilet after I took a dump in it," Gus once famously stated. He would frequently fly to Las Vegas to play larger games and eventually gain traction. Although he lost a number of hands, he would more than make up for it with the ones he did win. The poker community took note. Gus returned to tournament poker in 2002 and competed in the World Poker Tour's 5-Diamond World Poker Classic, putting his loose, aggressive style to the test. Gus dominated all 146 opponents, winning a cash prize of $550,000. Gus and his new style of play were certainly onto something. Gus was keen to prove that his World Poker Tour victory was more than simply luck. He wanted to cement his position among the elite. And in 2003, he did exactly that. Gus won the WPT LA Poker Classics, earning a $500,000 cash prize and the admiration of the poker industry. Gus Hansen was really creating a reputation for himself, and he wanted to expand his brand and business. That same year, he founded PokerChamps.com, an online poker room. The site quickly grew to a few thousand users, but Gus struggled to balance his time between running the site and traveling the world to play poker. He ended up selling the site to Betfair for about $15 million. Not bad for a 2-year business venture. But Gus wasn't going to slow down. In December 2003, he finished third in the Five Diamonds World Poker Classics, and just a month later, he won his third WPT title, the PokerStars Caribbean Adventure. His wild style of play, big winnings, and attractive appearance had made him one of the world's most famous poker players. In 2004, People magazine voted him one of the sexiest men alive. Gus continued to compete in all of the major tournaments, and in 2007, he flew to Australia to attend the Aussie Millions event. He finished in the top 10 for the majority of their minor events, but won the main event and received a big cash prize of $1.5 million. That's not a terrible payout, and Gus published a book about it called Every Hand Revealed. The book also did quite well, selling thousands of copies in both Denmark and the United States. At the time, it appeared that everything Gus touched turned to gold, and he was about to receive the largest monetary prize of his career. In April 2008, he competed in the $25,000 WPT Championship event, and despite coming second, he won a handsome amount of $1.7 million on his way out. Despite this, Gus, who had won over $7 million in live events by this point, still considered cash games to be his specialty. Most poker fans will recall his legendary clash with Daniel Negreanu in the second season of the high-stakes poker television series. Both players had excellent hands, but Gus turned quad fives against Negreanu's complete house to win the record-breaking pot of $575,000. Gus earned a sponsorship deal with Full Tilt Poker shortly after his appearance on the show. He started several videos for the brand and wore their insignia on his jerseys at every game he played. Full Tilt also proposed to provide financial support in exchange for him only playing on their platform. Gus's most recent notable performance came at the 2012 Aussie Millions $250,000 No Limit Hold'em Challenge. He made the final table but finished third behind Patrick Antonius and Phil Ivey. Gus, of course, wanted to win, but he was not too unhappy because the cash award for third place was $820,000. Even so, this appeared to be a watershed moment in his career. After that, Gus appeared to struggle. He continued to win a few $1,000s here and there, but he was no longer earning enough to maintain himself financially. I think every competitive player has to question himself at some point and ask, has the game surpassed me? Am I rusty? Am I not good enough in this game anymore? I'm asking myself questions, and that keeps me up at night. He told Poker News. To make matters worse, Gus was losing a lot of money at online poker. Without Full Tilt's financial backing, Gus was swiftly squandering his money, reportedly losing more than $21 million on online poker. That is the most anyone has ever lost. It's the same game and the same opponents, but when you sit in front of a screen, you can't see your opponent, you just have to push some buttons. And apparently I'm not as great at that. He told a Danish newspaper. Gus was no longer able to support himself financially through poker, so he had to find a regular job as an accountant, a significant change of pace. And he's not giving up on an old life like that. Gus Hansen knows how harsh this game can be, and if that hasn't turned him away, I don't know what will. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel before you leave.